Okay, today should be a fun one because today we are talking to Aaliyah Erica, and she is going to tell us all about how she felt like she got kind of a bait and switch on a trip to Kuwait. It was a business opportunity, a job opportunity that she thought was going to go one way, and it went a little left. So, Kuwait, tell us what happened, what brought you there, what's going on.
So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So I ultimately was told by someone who was in Kuwait that they had a yoga teaching opportunity. And I said, well, I'm a yoga teacher and I'm a fresh minted mom. And, they kind of, well, you can afford to have childcare. We'll offer you, transportation. You'll have your own driver. And the Kuwaiti dollar is so much more than the US dollar. And your money can go farther here and you can earn more money. And so it was just really appealing to me.
Yeah, that all sounds great. I want that.
It appealed to me because, I'm a fresh mom, no partner, and no community. So, it was more of like, how do I survive? They provided me a flat, so I didn't have to pay rent. And so it sounded so great, rent free, driver free, transportation. And it wasn't until I got there that I found out the driver was only to take me to and from work and that I had to figure out how to get to my groceries or anything else on my own. My flat was going to be shared with someone else that I didn't even know. And then when it came down to salary, the country required that if you were going to bring in labor, you couldn't pay them less than 400. You had to pay them 400 and include insurance.
And 400 for what?
So it's 400, and I forget what the Kuwaiti dollar is called, but it's 400 per month.
Okay, and what's that about US dollars? Look it up.
I want to say because it was 30 USD at the time to one Kuwaiti dollar. So,
Right.
so
I just
ultimate
400 Kuwaiti dinars. It says it's about 1,300 US dollars now.
Yeah, that was 2019. So roughly, I was supposed to be having at the base starting 400 and insurance. And I wasn't. I was getting 350, no insurance, and I still had to come out of pocket for any other things and expenses.
So how did they deal with just paying you less? How did that start?
Because I wasn't made aware of it until I came there, and I was doing the research, and I was meeting up with other people, and I told them, I said, you're not supposed to, as a mother, as someone, because you have to take care of the child, and if you don't have enough money to take care of the child, you become a financial burden to the community. So ultimately, as I was doing more research there, and as I was asking questions, as I was talking to people, it found out that they were pretty much going to slave labor me. They did not tell me how many days I was going to be working. And mind you, my son was like freshly minted, like he was like 6 months old. So they wanted me to work. And the way the Kuwaitis work, they work 6 days a week. And the only day off is Sunday. And then you only have half of the day because from sun up to midday, they're in mosque, they're in prayer, and everything is closed down. And so you only have technically 12 to 9 p.m. on Sunday as your time off. But then you would be working from and the way they wanted me to do is to be their primary yoga teacher. So I would be talking for all classes all day. And I said, that's unrealistic for me to be talking almost 8 hours a day and being away from my child. And it was like, oh, well, there's childcare here. And you
Well, who
can
can
get to
you
see your
do
son.
yoga for that long? Like who's doing yoga for 8 hours?
So it was all of the classes that they would have
Okay,
with
so it wasn't
different
just like
schedules and
for
shifts.
them personally. It was like you were supposed to be the yoga teacher and they were like kind of In my head, I want to say pimping you out, but not
Yes, yes, they were. Yes, they were. And it's just, think about it, 8 hour teaching day. Technically, you have about maybe 6 to 7 classes. And so even negotiating with them to bring me down to 3 classes a day, because I said my voice would, I'm pretty much talking for 8 hours straight, 6 days a week. So my voice is not going to last. And that's not balance at all. So ultimately, when we had the conversation, and I was very forward about my preferences and my desires after they kept revealing new barriers to me, I said, "Listen, I'm willing to teach. These are my terms." So they basically stopped communicating with me, left me in the flat, and like my dog's paperwork had expired, and I travel with a service dog, and my service dog's paperwork had expired, so I had to get her shot so that we could leave. But in any country, you cannot leave within the 30 days of the shots. So because I did that, the last 2 weeks before I left, because they bought me my plane ticket there and they bought me my plane ticket home for both my son and myself. And ultimately, they stopped talking to me 15 days after my dog's shots. And then I had 2 weeks of no money, no contact, no support. So I ultimately had to reach out to the Black community there, and I said, whoever's willing to take yoga classes. And thankfully, I taught maybe 2 or 3 yoga classes, which gave me enough money to really survive myself. This lady gave me food and she gave it to me, but because my son didn't eat any of it, I didn't want to waste it. So I ended up selling it, and she was so mad at me because I sold the food, and I was like, as a Black woman, you would understand, I have to do what it takes to survive for this situation. Like, this is really I first time Kuwait, didn't know this was going to be a thing. And ultimately, she was like, I would have taken it and given it to someone else. And I was like, as a mom who's literally abandoned by the people that brought her here, and a mom who's not going to waste the food but needs money in turn, I did what was necessary for our family. And it was just, all around, I was just like, I'm not having any support here. And then I got to hear some uncomfortable stories about the Filipinas that kind of let me
Well,
know
that's
I
what I was
shouldn't
sort
be
of
there.
wondering because I was going to say, I mean, you did get a bait and switch, but it doesn't sound that bad. I've heard worse where it's like they take people's passports or they're really treating people kind of crazy. So, what did
Yeah.
you see or hear about that?
Yeah. So that's the part I was like, it's not as bad as they think it is. Or like, I didn't get the really bad treatment. Um, Filipinos are known as the Mexicans of the Middle East. And oftentimes what they do is they will bring Filipinas in and they will hold their passports. And they can also hold their passport without pay. So they can work for months on end. They'll be provided basic needs, of course, housing and food. But to do anything else, to buy anything else, to have liberties, to do anything else, they don't have that. So they're basically leaving potential income in the Philippines to come here, hoping that they could make money or have a better lifestyle, send money back home. Come to find out that they don't have exactly that. And that's a common culture, is that they're not very upfront to tell you all of, lay it out, tell you all of what you're getting involved in, and then when you get there, they change the dynamic and you experience something different. And that's just for dealing with the Kuwaiti people, because a lot of people go to Kuwait because of U.S. contracts. Now, the U.S. contracts are totally separate. You're going to deal with a different type of person because they have a U.S. mindset. But for me, I felt that the experience was really morally compass, like, so, but there was a lot of poor morals when dealing with the folks that I dealt with. And granted, there may be some really great Kuwaitis. I just didn't get to
Of
experience
course.
them there.
And it sure is, it bears repeating that. Of course, there are lovely people in every country, but there can also be some sort of cultural norms that people can come up against that it's important to understand. And because before this started, we were talking and you were mentioning how, in Kuwait, sort of a lot of people want to live this sort of flashy lifestyle, but they don't pay the salaries to people that are really sort of maybe appropriate to live that flashy lifestyle. So,
I would say the flashy lifestyle is for the Kuwaitis. It's not for the people that come there. So when you do see people driving around fancy cars and you see them really looking like the Kardashians, it is particularly not the Westerners. It's the Kuwaitis. So.
but all right. So that was Kuwait. You got out. Thank goodness. You did what it took to survive. You sold somebody else's food. Look,
I would never feel bad about that as long as I could get out.
you made it out. All right. I'm so grateful to have talked to Aaliyah Erica today. And I just want to wrap this up with some tips that, if you are planning to move overseas for a job, it is really important to get some specifics. Like when someone says that they're going to give you an apartment, make sure you're asking some questions. Is the apartment just for you? Is this going to be a shared, space? Sometimes, we might make assumptions and it's not always accurate. Make sure you get all the details, preferably with pictures. Another thing, she was told that she was going to have access to a driver. It was like true, not true. She did have access to a driver, but not to take her exactly where she wanted to go, only to take her to work. So it's important that if you're told you're going to have access to a driver, it's important that you know if you will also have access to that driver in your personal time, right? Is that driver just to get you to and from work related events, or is that driver really at your disposal whenever you need it for yourself? Also, make sure you get salary information and all this stuff we're talking about. It's really important too to, if you can, get it all in writing, not just something over the phone. If you get it over the phone, that's cool. But I personally would follow up with an email recapping, everything that's discussed over the phone, and make sure, you get like a confirmation email, right? Hey, just writing to confirm this is what we talked about. This is what's agreed, so that there's no sort of ambiguity as you move forward with a job, especially, when you're going through all the hassle of moving overseas, going to a new space, even just moving to a new city, right? You want to make sure these things are sort of clear in writing and you know what's going on. But so definitely, yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to get into the details. In fact, not just don't be afraid, it could be really vital, right? Especially, if you're moving with others too. And if you have children or other people that are going with you, it's just a good idea to, like, let's grow, let's learn from other people's experiences and take from it what we can. And, I think it was cool to hear her experience. And, I think, it's important to get these things understood with jobs in advance. Make sure you know what to expect. So that's it for this one, and I'll catch you in the next video.